What's the value add that you do give to clients?
So we help apartment owners and operators with a couple of their greatest needs, which is resident retention and resident satisfaction. And so what we've found is that the more relationships an apartment resident has in their community, the happier they are and the longer they stay. In fact, the magic numbers seems to be about 7. If a resident knows 7 of their neighbors, they're almost twice as likely to renew their lease as somebody who doesn't know any of their neighbors.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And for those who are not real estate investors or apartment owners, I'll just explain, like, one of the biggest, and you can tell me if you agree or disagree, but one of the biggest expenses that real estate investors face is that turnover.
Yeah.
Like, it sits empty for a month. You got to remodel the whole unit. You got to get it fixed up. And when you have that across dozens or hundreds of units, it's such a massive amount of money that you lose. And of course that trickles into the value of the property by like a 10 to 20x, difference. So it's, if it might be just, you're going to lose $1,000. Okay. Well, you lose $1,000 every month on a different unit. Now you're at $12,000. That's, $200,000 in value on the property you lose just because you can't retain people. So if you can cut that in half because people are staying longer, it makes a massive impact, especially again, if you have a 400-unit apartment complex. Yeah. I mean, you've got 20 vacancies a month or whatever it is. Like, it really, really starts to add up. Yeah. The value of that.
I was talking to a buddy who is in new development, and one of the things that he was telling me is that on the bottom level of all of his apartment complexes, he includes either a coffee shop or a gym or something of that sort because it creates community, which then in turn keeps people there longer, which makes the value of the property way higher. So is it similar to that?
Yeah, it's similar to that. So our model, at least the classic model that we started 24 years ago, we place people who actually live in the community, but they're officially there on behalf of management. And they're like the welcome wagon. Yeah. So they greet every new resident when they move in. So every month the management gives them a list of, here's all the people who just moved in this month. So they'll go and they'll welcome them. How was your move-in experience? They organize all the events on the community, and they invite people, hey, why don't you come out? They look for opportunities to care for people. So, like, I've heard stories about, like, they see somebody's car broken down in the parking lot, and they're like, hey, do you need a ride over to AutoZone to get a new battery? So they help people. And then 90 to 120 days before a resident's lease is set to renew, they'll go by and they'll just do a friendly visit like, hey, are you thinking about sticking around another year? And as they do that, it creates this sticky community where people actually know their neighbors and they like it and they stay longer.
So where does the faith piece come in? I mean, are they taking people to church? I mean, is there what's the...
So all the people that we mobilize to do this, they're motivated because they want to live out Jesus' command, love your neighbor as yourself. And so... they want to have a positive spiritual impact on people, but we train them how to do that within the guidelines of fair housing. So you want to build a friendship, you want to build a relationship, and in the context of that, when people ask you, like, why are you helping me? Why are you taking me to the airport at 5 a.m? It opens up an opportunity for them to talk about, like, how God has, motivated them to do this. And so anyone who does the program will have hundreds of natural opportunities to have simple spiritual conversations. Like, what motivates you to do this? And the stories that I hear every month are just incredible.
That's cool. Yeah, and what's neat is, like, I think maybe there's probably some people that would look at that and say, you're either A, you're going to be forcing your religion on people, which I know you don't do, or B, if you're on the Christian side, is like, you should be forcing your opinion, your religion on people. Some people might be like, it's so important you have to be in there every single day pushing people. What it sounds like you're in this nice middle ground where you're just saying, hey, we're just going to share love. We're just be loving people. Yeah. And if people want information, great, they can come ask us. They can ask us why we're doing this. They can be there. But we're not forcing anything. We're helping the apartment owner. We're helping the residents. Everybody wins. There's no loss in this.
Yeah. No, I think that you said it really well. Like, my desire is that people would experience from our coordinators God's unconditional love. Yeah. And because it's for everybody. Yeah. It is for everybody. And so if you love people unconditionally, it'll change their life.
Yeah. That's cool, man. What about events? You mentioned the idea of you put on events. What does an event look like?
Yeah, it could. I mean, obviously they'll work with the on-site property management team to see what kind of events, but it could be as simple as a wine down Wednesday, where on Wednesday, they put out a couple bottles of wine, people come down, they kind of process how their week's going. Could be a yappy hour.
That's a clever name.
A yappy hour. So something like people who have pets, they'll say, hey, like bring your pets down, and we're going to have like special treats for the pets and maybe a special treat for pet owners.
Yeah.
They can do Taco Tuesday. They can do breakfast at the gate as people are getting ready to go to work. So, hey, here's a Chick-fil-A biscuit for you. So they're just looking for ways to bring the community together. And so they'll try a variety of different events until they find what's going to work the best on this community.
What does it typically cost, and who pays? Is it you guys get paid for this? The community managers, are they getting paid or just free rent? Like, what's the financials look like on that?
Yeah, so the biggest cost to the owner is they concede a 2-bedroom unit to us, which we say you're probably going to have that unless you're undercharging for rent. So that's a way that you can use something that's not earning you any revenue and put it to work to serve your residents. That's the biggest cost, is the conceded unit. In addition to that, they're probably also going to already have some kind of event budget, and so we just recommend $2 per door to throw events. And then there's an $800 a month management fee that goes to Apartment Life that enables us to kind of find the coordinators and to deploy them. So the coordinators, when they live on site, though they're living in a conceded unit, they actually pay a little bit to be part of the program, and we do that for a couple of reasons. One is we want them to have some skin in the game. We learned over the years that when it's just a free unit, a lot of people sign up for the free unit. And so you want to make sure that they're in it for the right reason. But the other reason that we do that, it actually keeps our management fee to the owners a lot lower than it would otherwise be. And so the teams, depends on the market and it depends on the rental value, but it fluctuates based on, how much work they're doing. And so we kind of prorate their rent deduction, if you will, based on, how much work they're actually doing in the program.
With coordinators, like what is the requirements of a coordinator that you're placing? What are the requirements for them?
Yeah. So in our classic model, they would be giving, let's say it's a husband and wife, they would each be giving on average 10 to 15 hours a week, usually at nights and on weekends. And so that's like 20 hours combined, let's say. And what's great for the management team is they deal with so many angry residents all week. You've done property management. You know what it's like. The last thing you want to do at the end of the month is throw a party for all these people. And so they can just outsource that. They can show up for the event if they want, but if they're like, I don't want to see any of these residents tonight.
It's almost like a good cop, bad cop kind of vibe. Because the manager has to be, like in property management, you have to be strict. Like you have to abide by the rules. Hey, you were late on rent, I have to charge you late fees. Like when you don't, it's like having a kid. You don't give boundaries to. They just go all over the place. But tenants are the same way. Some tenants. So I love this concept of saying, hey, like, they get to be the love on you. We can still love you, but we're gonna love you with rules. And and you didn't pay your rent, so
so it's a way that management can show care for their residents without getting in a compromising place. Because you do have to say, like, no, I cannot budge on the rent.
That's because when we first started building our rental portfolio, one of my core values was I just wanted to love everybody. And so we did that a couple of times where somebody couldn't make rent and we're like, oh, we've got you covered. Or there was one time that we actually went and picked up one of our tenants to drive them somewhere because their car had broken down. And that was to love on them. And I still think that you should do that. But we realized really quickly that once you do that as a property manager, you get taken advantage of. And so that person that we drove that one day started just blowing us up for rides all the time. And so I absolutely love kind of how the way that you can play that good cop, bad cop type vibe with that.
And again, we want the owner and the management company to get the credit for it. But it's the way they get the credit without getting overly enmeshed in their residents' lives that puts them in a difficult position.
How big are you guys right now? How many apartments are you in or units do you serve?
We're serving about 650 apartment communities, about 225,000 units nationwide. So, and then we've got a little 6 programs up in Canada and 1 little dot on the map in the UK.
Oh, cool.
So our 50-year vision is to be able to really serve any church or apartment community in the world through our model.
Yeah.
But that's 50 years out.
All right, so if this is costing an apartment complex $800 a month, you said, plus potentially the cost of that free unit, which again every property has vacancy, so it might not actually be a big expense there. But what's the return? Like, is there data? Do you have data on whether or not this actually helps apartments?
Yeah, so we have a couple different data points. One is we do independent studies with a group called Witten Advisors. They're an economic research firm that serves the multifamily industry. And we'll do a survey of their residents. And basically, based on that feedback, they'll extrapolate the economic value. And so what they would say is, we've done a roll-up of probably a couple hundred of these studies that on average we're contributing $188,000 a year to the net operating income.
Wow.
When you talk about turnover costs, marketing savings, even staff turnover. And that's a big deal actually since the pandemic, is the turnover of property management staff has just increased. And so the program, though it was designed originally for the residents, actually has an incredible impact on the property management staff themselves.
Yeah, why is that? Like, what's it doing for the property management staff? Why do they like that?
Well, we tell our coordinators they're the first people we want you to serve, because if you make their lives better, you're going to bulletproof your program. And so they'll go out of their way, buy donuts for them or coffee, or, hey, how can I serve you? And so they're just always, plus they're just taking, like I said, they get so much criticism during the week. They're actually residents that affirm them and encourage them.
Yeah.
And so,
for that alone, just to reduce the stress and irritation of our management. Because I've got a bunch of apartment complexes, and there's they get burned out. And
they do.
For that reason alone, it's worth the money.
Yeah.
Even if it didn't affect the residents whatsoever, it's probably worth just to help the managers feel just a little bit better about their jobs.
What does $188,000 a year increase equal to? Is that a couple million?
Yeah, millions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At a 5
value?
cap?
Yeah, at a 5 cap, it's probably like 20 times that. So, yeah.
It's not bad.
That's
Yeah.
like,
It's not a bad return.
And obviously that depends on the size of the property. So what is that? What's too small? Like, obviously single family house ain't working, duplex ain't working. But like, what's the minimum size you typically recommend for somebody?
So historically, our average unit count would be 350. But we've served communities as small as 46, and it's really up to the owner. And sometimes you just get, like we had one faith-aligned owner in Oklahoma City, just like, I want to do this. I don't care. I don't mind giving up a unit. I don't mind paying the management fee. But that is actually one of the reasons we developed an off-site model, because it actually, what you can do is you can deploy a coordinator on multiple communities and spread the cost over, several owners or a portfolio or something like that. And so it enables us to serve smaller apartment communities as well.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a neat model to be able to just like love on people and watch it produce revenue, because it's very rare. I feel like where you can combine both charity and that, and that's why. Do you guys raise money outside? It's a nonprofit, so are you guys out there getting donations and all that as well, or is it just really funded through the business?
Well, the business model funds the vast majority of our operating costs, but we always have to raise a little bit of money every year, and it depends. Like 2 years ago, it was 90% funded by the business model. Last year, it was 97%.
Wow.
This year, because we gave all of our employees a 3% cost of living adjustment, but we didn't raise our prices to our clients, we'll probably run a little bit bigger gap this year. So it depends. But I would say 90 to 95% funded by the business model.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I feel like, I'm sure you've looked at this in the data, but I feel like $800 a month for a 350 unit apartment building, like it's like a rounding error.
Yeah.
I feel like you could charge $1,000 or $2,000. I'm sure you guys have run that data, but yeah, like as an apartment owner, I'm like, it's a rounding error. It
is such
we're talking
a
$1 million
small
a
line
month
item.
coming in. Yeah.
And honestly, if you wanted to hire somebody just to, be an assistant to the team, it'd be hard to do at $800.
Yeah, you're never going to get that.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for people who maybe are listening they only have the duplex, or they have a 12 unit or a 20 unit? How can they implement some of the strategies that you guys do at a large scale, how can they do it with their own tenants? I mean, somebody who has one property, like how can they better love on their people in a way at a smaller level, very part-time because everyone's busy?
Yeah, so I would say one of the simple things you could do is to find a house of worship nearby. And I'm from a Christian background, but if you're a Jewish owner, find a synagogue. But find a faith group that really embodies the love your neighbor as yourself, and see if they would send out volunteers. A lot of churches, and I assume synagogues, want to serve the community, but they're not always sure how. And when it comes to an apartment, these are gated communities. They have non-solicitation policies. They're just like at wit's end. I want to meet needs. I don't know how to do that. So if the owner or the operator opened the doors and said, "Hey, come in, just don't do anything weird," I think you'd see a lot of takers.